Hey, Sean here with Some Dude in Texas. Welcome back, and if you're new to the channel, thanks for stopping by. So a couple weeks ago, I did an episode where I talked about Van Halen's Zero demos from 1976, the ones that Gene Simmons recorded. So it got me thinking, you know what, why not do an album ranking of Van Halen? So they got 12 studio albums, so I figure I'll rank them 1 through 12, starting at number 12. Now I know there's already a bunch of videos of this, but hey, what's one more going to hurt? And I figured I'd throw in my 2 cents. So don't go anywhere. Let's get started. All right, so they had 12 studio albums, and I'll be honest with you, it's tough, right? Everybody's got their favorites, and everybody's got their reasons for, not liking one and liking one the other. And, this is just my take on them. I think every Van Halen album, even with the 3 different singers, they each had some certain qualities to it, and each album brought something to the table, man. I mean, there's each album, at least has 2 or 3 songs on there that are really good. So I'll be talking about that, but we'll go ahead and get started. Now the first one is probably going to be no surprise, but that is not number 12. The Van Halen III. Now, it's kind of a shame because this really is a good album, but I think, it probably would have been, better received and probably would have been, done better in the charts if it, had Sammy singing it. To me, that's what it sounds like. It sounds like an album that probably could have fit between 5150 and OU812, or maybe OU812 and For Unlawful Carnal Knowledge. I wasn't surprised back in '98 when I heard that they picked Gary Cherone to be the singer, because with him being extreme, they always had that stigma of, especially the first album, sounding like Van Halen. But that had more to do with Nuno than it did with Gary. Nuno definitely, you can hear on that first album, you hear the influence that Eddie Van Halen had on him. I've never been a big Gary Cherone fan. I'm not knocking him. But I think that kind of, definitely hurt this album. Some of the songs on there, like I said, you could definitely hear, Sammy singing them. Without You, that one's pretty good. Or that one's all right. One I Want, for some reason, even though it's kind of poppy and kind of catchy, that one always kind of stood out with me. But Dirty Water Dog. That almost sounds like something that could have been on OU812. I could definitely, I've heard, Sammy singing that one. And then Fire in the Hole sounds like something off of 5150. And then Ballad or Bullet, same way. It was kind of heavier, kind of got that 5150 vibe. But, it is a shame. It's a good album. Eddie was, he was on the top of his game, I think. His solos were great. The riffs were a little more, a little more intricate. He was kind of, a little bit all over the place. A little different, but you could still hear, that Sammy Hagar era vibe to it. But that's my take on it. I think Van Halen 3, comes in at number 12. All right, next one, number 11. This one may be a shock to a lot of y'all because it had big success, MTV and on the radio. But it's going to be coming out 11. For Unlawful Carnal Knowledge. I think while this one's kind of low for me is Right Now, that song. I heard it so much back, in 91 and 92, my senior year in high school. I think I just got tired of it, and it just kind of ruined the album for me. But I do remember hearing Pound Cake and hearing him use that Makita cordless drill to get that sound, get out, being Eddie, he's always innovating stuff, looking for, something different. And I always thought that song was cool. And then Judgment Day, of course, and In and Out, some heavy songs. But the slower ones, Right Now on Top of the World, man, they were just constant rotation on the radio, at least down here where I was. And I think that just kind of burned the bridge for me when it came to this album. But yeah, number 11, For Unlawful Carnal Knowledge. All right, next one. I thought this is kind of an underrated album, I think. I think this one's off, kind of overlooked, especially due to the time when it came out, that 95, 96 era when music was kind of weird and you wasn't grunge, it was like post-grunge stuff. But anyway, Coming in at number 10, Balance. Once again, I think it's an underrated album. I remember hearing Don't Tell Me What Love Can Do for the first time, and I remember just that intro. It's real simple, kind of slow, but I thought, man, it's heavy, you know. And this album's it's a little darker too, right? And unfortunately, you know, after this album, you know, they split with Sammy for a while. But I always thought Don't Tell Me What Love Can Do was a good, heavy song. And, of course, The Seventh Seal. And then Amsterdam. You know, that's one of my favorite songs. It is my favorite song off this album. There's a video out there. It was 1986. Eddie was in his 5150 studios. You can see it on YouTube if you have it. But he's sitting there at the board. He's playing a Charvel, and he's playing Amsterdam. And this was 10 years before it was released, so it's kind of cool, you know, that shows you Eddie was always writing and always, you know, keeping things, you know, for later on. But Amsterdam, Big Fat Money, that's a heavy one. Aftershock's a good one. And it was just a good album, I think. I think it deserved a lot more credit than what it got. But once again, coming in at number 10, Balance. All right, coming in at number 9. The last album that they put out, and it was with David Lee Roth, A Different Kind of Truth. Now, this one has a lot of songs that they'd been holding on to since the 70s. You know, Bullet Head, that's one of my favorite ones on here. That one, I think they were playing in the clubs before they got signed. And then She's the Woman, that's also on that Zero demo album that I talked about a couple weeks ago. And then Big River. But, I mean, this has some good, heavy, old school Van Halen songs on it. Dave was sounding pretty good. You know, he's not the Dave that he was back in the late 70s and early 80s, but had some real good heavy riffs, man. Eddie just sounded great. They all sounded good. I think, you know, to me, they were missing that high harmony, you know, backup vocals from Michael Anthony. I think that would have just been the cherry on top. Unfortunately, you know, they couldn't get him on there. But songs like Outer Space and then Beach Working, if you listen to that Zero demos, I think that they kind of took some riffs on some of the songs in there and created these. But I think this is a great album, man. Eddie's guitar tone just sounds awesome. I think the one downer on this is the first song, Tattoo. To me, that just, I don't know, when I first heard the album and that was the first song I heard, I was kind of like, uh-oh. It just, I don't know, man. It was kind of polished. It didn't really sound a whole lot like a Van Halen song to me, but rest of the album I thought was great, and I think it's, you know, due coming in at, you know, number 9 on my little countdown here. All right, next one, number 8. Is Diver Down. You know, a lot of people kind of talk about this because it had a lot of covers on it, but there's still some, you know, some good solid, you know, songs on here. Where Have All the Good Times Gone? You know, I got a kick out of Big Bad Bill, but The Full Bug, and then, you know, Hang 'Em High. Great songs, man. Some killer riffs on that. And this is one that I spin. I spin it a lot. But that's coming in at number 8, Diver Down. All right, next one, number 7. It's probably going to shock some people too. But their second album was Sammy, OU812. I remember when this came out, I was like 14 years old, 1988, and I think the first song that they released on there was Black and Blue. And I thought this was a good second album with Sammy. Still kind of carried on, still had some you know, some heavy riffs, you know, from the 5150 album, but it also kind of had that radio friendly, you know, kind of poppy songs, you know, Feel So Good, and what's the other one? When It's Love. But songs like AFU, Black and Blue, oh yeah, another one, Finish What You Started. That was a big hit, kind of that, you know, kind of poppy, you know, clean tone song. But Source of Infection, Sucker in a Three-Piece Suit, and then my favorite on here, Cabo Wabo. I remember hearing that for the first song. It's just a great song, and, you know, the chorus and just the melody in it, I really dig it. So, you know, I think this is definitely worth coming in at number 7. Once again, OU812. I switched you. Put it on tape. Got it on vinyl as well. All right. All right, next one. Now these next six is where it's going to get really kind of interesting, right? This is probably where there's going to be some disagreeing, but hey, that's what's great. Everybody has their own opinion, and that's what's great about music. Everybody kind of interprets it. I can't even say it. Everybody kind of sees it different or hears it different, right? But anyway, next one coming in at number 6, and which is probably one of their biggest selling ones, is 1984. Now, I remember when this came out, I was about 10 years old, and of course, Jump. That was the big hit that you were always hearing. And that's probably one of my least favorite songs on here. It's just, I know that was one of the songs that Eddie was proudest of the most, but, I don't know, man. It's Van Halen, and always thought, should be, a lot more guitars. But, of course, Panama, that's a heavy song. And then when Hot for Teacher came out, man, what kid or man didn't like the video that they put out on MTV for that one? But of course, Hot for Teacher, that's a classic. And then House of Pain, I mean, that's my probably favorite song on the album. And that's also on that Zero demo. So that thing was written back in 75, 76. They've been sitting on it for a while. It's another good one. But, once again, this is probably one of their biggest selling ones. It's a classic. But it's coming in at number 6, 1984. All right. So this is going to be interesting. All right, coming in at number 5. Sammy's first album with him, 5150. This is just, I remember hearing this one for the first time, right? Came out in 86, so I was 12 years old. And I remember just sitting in the back of my uncle's car. He had it, he popped the tape in, and, that first song, hearing Sammy say, well, hello, baby, and then just kicking in with that guitar scream. I just would never forget it, and I remember it just it blew me away. And I just think that for them going through what they did, they had those albums, all that success with Dave, and then when Dave left, they were like, everybody thought they were done, right? They just thought, they're over with. They're not going to be able to survive without Dave. And then they came out, man, all guns blazing, kicking and screaming, and I think they really, they proved everybody wrong. But this is just, every song on here is just awesome. And, they've got the slower songs too, Love Walks In, Dreams. But I remember hearing, Best of Both Worlds for the first time. Summer Nights, that's just a good one, summertime, to crank up while you're outside, grilling, at the lake, beach, whatever. But songs like Good Enough and Get Up. And then one of my favorites on here was 5150. But I just, it was a new chapter for Van Halen. And I think they just, like I said, they came out swinging, man. Eddie had a different guitar tone. It just seemed like it was almost, changed the style a little bit, but it was just heavier and faster. And then, of course, Sammy brought just so much more, to the vocals of the songs and everything. And then I think, with Michael Anthony, he just, that high harmony, it gelled well with Sammy. But to me, I think this is definitely a top 5 album of theirs. And once again, that's 5150. All right, now moving down to number 4. Women and Children First. This is another Van Halen classic, right? You got The Cradle Will Rock, and one of my favorites, Romeo Delight, Fools, Could This Be Magic, and then Loss of Control. That's just a crazy song, man. Just good song. And then Take Your Whiskey Home, and then Everybody Wants Some. I think the first time I ever heard that, Everybody Wants Some, was off the movie Better Off Dead, right? Everybody, if you haven't seen that movie, watch it. It's a classic with John Cusack. It's an awesome movie. But if you haven't seen it, it's going to be spoiler work. But, or spoiler alert here. Everybody that's seen it, that the scene when he's in the restaurant. A hamburger coming alive, got the Eddie guitar, playing this song. It's just great. I think that was one of the best parts of the movie. But anyway, this is just a great album. I was fortunate enough to get, one of the original pressings. I didn't have the one with the poster, which I'm okay with that. If you've seen the poster, you know what I'm talking about. But anyway, coming at number 4, Women and Children First. All right, next 3, This is going to get interesting as well. Now, most people are going to say this is probably their best album. To me, you see all these interviews with all these musicians and famous people talking about the first time they heard this album. It just blew them away, right? Well, when it came out in 1978, I was only 4 years old, so my parents weren't listening to Van Halen. I was listening to Barbra Streisand and Donna Summers and stuff like that. But anyway, Van Halen 1. Like I said, I know it's kind of shocker to some people. I mean, it's a classic. But like I said, I didn't hear this until I was a little bit older, and there was other stuff, and we'll be getting into that I'd heard before that really made an impact on me. But uh, this album was groundbreaking, right? It changed rock and roll history. It changed how guitar players played. It changed how stage shows, frontman, all of that. It really kind of punched everybody in the face when it came out. But of course, Eruption. That's Eddie's world famous solo. And you think about those Zero demos that I talked about a couple weeks ago. What if that would have been the first album, right? Would it had that impact on the world and on the music scene as this one did, right? What if he didn't put Eruption on that one? So it's probably pretty good that Gene wasn't able to get him signed, and they held out another year and then got signed up with Warner Brothers. But coming in at number 3, Van Halen 1. All right, coming in at number 2, Van Halen 2. I just love this album. I think every song on here is great. And then it's got, probably my second favorite Van Halen song on here, and that's DOA. I just love that song. It's just heavy, and just the lyrics. And, yeah, like I said, one of my favorite songs. And then, Bottoms Up, Women in Love. That's another great song, man. I love just how that song's put together, and I love the kind of the outro, the end of that song. To me, this album really kind of, it impacted me a lot more than, say, Van Halen 1. And I can only imagine, what people were anticipating, after that first one. Wonder if it was a disappointment. But to me, like I said, I think it's their second best album. Like I said, you got songs like Bottoms Up, Women in Love, Light Up the Sky, Beautiful Girls, and of course DOA. Spanish Fly is awesome. And it's just a great album. You got a little poppy song, Dance the Night Away. Out of Love Again is awesome. But I think every song on here is just a classic. It's coming in at number 2, Van Halen 2. All right, here we go. The moment everybody's been waiting for, and you already know which one it's going to be. But coming in at number 1 for me is Fair Warning. And just everything about this album, it's a darker album, right? For the David Lee Roth era, but this to me is the tone, right? Eddie's tone. I think this is the one that everybody, that brown sound that everybody talks about. I think this album demonstrates that tone that everybody looks for. It's just great production, drums, bass, everything just sounds good. But like I said, Eddie's tone on this is just amazing. But songs like Mean Street, So This Is Love, Push Comes to Shove, Center Swing, I love that. But my favorite song, and this is the one that that really kind of impacted me. I talked about that. I wasn't listening to Van Halen and stuff back in '78. I was 4 years old, but I remember when I was a little bit older. I was probably about 13, 14 years old, watching MTV, and the video for Unchained come on. And at that time, I hadn't heard, Fair Warning, hadn't heard this, that song or this album. I remember just seeing the video, it was live footage, just all those big speakers and then just the bright lights. And of course, Dave doing his jumps and everything, but just hearing, that opening riff on this song, man, it just punched me in the face. And it's still to this day, every time I hear it, it just gives me goosebumps, right? I think it's the best song that they ever wrote, and I think this is their greatest album. There's not a bad song on here. I said, it's a little darker. It's got some keyboard songs on there as well, but it's kind of dark sounding. But I think if you've been living under a rock and you haven't heard this one, you definitely need to treat your ears to this masterpiece. But like I said, coming in at number one for me, Van Halen's Fair Warning. All right, well, that wraps up this episode. Y'all be sure to leave me some comments down below. Let me know what y'all think. I got thick skin. You're not going to hurt my feelings. If you agree, if you don't agree, go ahead and put it on there, man. I'm always up for some good, conversation about music, especially Van Halen. But hey, I appreciate y'all watching, and like I said, leave those comments. And if you do like what you're seeing, be sure to hit that subscribe and like button. And until next time, y'all take care. Y'all come back now. You hear?